All right, Casey, you can take it away.
Thank you, Crystal. And before I start, since today is International Haiku Day, I'm going to give you this. Welcome, Toastmasters, to our PWP meeting. Enjoy our speaker. Did I get that right? Yeah, that was right. And with that, we will start. What if you took a project or a goal that you have started, stopped, and started again and finished it using pathways? One example might be to get a new job or promotion, or like Sandra, you're a writer and want to prepare a pitch to a literary agent. What if you have an event like a charity initiative, but don't know how to organize everything? Using the methodology in the Pathways Your Way with Purpose 40-minute presentation, we'll look at pathways as a tool for you to use towards your goals. By turning pathways upside down, you'll get excited and won't lack ideas for speeches, although you may have to struggle to get the speaking roster, as your fellow club masters will be diligently working on their goals too. As a former project manager of 17 years for Adobe, Macromedia, and other software companies, Sandra can show you how to break down your goal into projects where pathways will incrementally guide you. You can practice in your club meetings before going out in your best suit and presenting to a client or committee or literary agent. Pathways Your Ways is for all club members and great for mentors too. So please join me in welcoming Sandra Savage. Pathways Your Ways, Sandra Savage.
Thank you. Back at the end of 2017, Pathways was introduced into the Silicon Valley area. We were the guinea pigs because we understood computers. And we went out and we gave the standard presentation on Basecamp and what the whole program was about, the different paths that were available. We realized that it wasn't speaking to people as far as what they were going to get out of it. We were just addressing the way they got it. So what I spent the next few years on is looking at how you could use Pathways for a way for you to, like Casey said, get something done. Start something that you've been wanting to do. Start working on a goal that you have. And I love this idea. You know, we've got a fresh new year. We're already into almost May, but it's not too late to start looking at the goals that you have for this year and for next. Because a lot of our goals are short-term, but others may take a lot more planning. And so taking a look at what your goals are, we're going to figure out how to do it your way. Because as my mother will tell you to this day, I never do it the way it should be done. I get it done my way. And we just happen to be using Pathways with a purpose to get it done. What we're going to go through is figuring out some different ideas, and I'm going to share with you a lot of them that are right in your backyard in Canada with the women that Kathy and I work with at Women Changemakers. And then I'm going to challenge you to think of an idea, because the best place to start with getting your club to use Pathways this way is for you to use Pathways this way. So take off your boss hat and put on your user hat and start thinking of ideas that you might want to work on this year and possibly next. Then I'm going to go through some real easy ways to get started. We're going to plan and schedule out your path, and then we're going to celebrate. And I have Milky Way bars always on hand to celebrate all of my speeches. Now, this started many, many years ago, around the same time as Pathways. I got a mentee that, I could not get anything out of her. She just didn't have any oomph, any fire in her belly. She had no get up and go. You ask her a question and you get an answer, but she never came to a conclusion. I mean, this is like all the engineers in Silicon Valley. And she just was nothing there. And I finally got so frustrated with her, and Kathy can picture me doing this. I slammed my hand down on the table and I said, Janet, what do you want to be when you grow up? Which is always the phrase my dad said, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? And she says, well, and here she is, an engineer working for a high-tech company. She says, I want to be an international photojournalist. And I just looked at her and I was like, where have you been? This sounds like fun. Let's get going. Let's get you started. So we sat down and looked at all the different things she'd have to do. In fact, she brought a vision board with her to our next meeting. We met her in this local coffee shop, and she had pictures and things she had to do, and she had done a bunch of research. And it was like there was just so much desire coming out of her to do this that it made sense. Why give a speech about when you could talk about something you're interested in? So she went on and she put together her media kit, and now that is what she is doing to this day. She's traveling around the world, although it got limited for a while, as a photojournalist, doing both the photography and the writing. And that's the hard part, deciding on one goal. For me, I've got about 10, but my emphasis this year is on writing my novel. I want to get this thing written. It's important to me. What's important to you? I moved to Idaho recently, and what was important to me immediately was having somebody I knew in this town. And so I joined a Toastmasters club in Idaho from California, and I got to know KRISTY, and KRISTY ended up becoming my mentee. She ended up being my friend too, but I don't see her very much anymore, and I'll tell you why. She had an idea. She joined Toastmasters for confidence, but what she really wanted was a promotion. And I said to her, well, that's all fine and well. Horace, you're laughing at that. I says, yeah, your boss is going to say, and what are you going to give me? You know, what are you training him for? You've been doing the same job for 26 years. Why should he pay you more all of a sudden? What are you going to do for him? What are you going to do differently? She says, well, you know, I am training everybody in the office. I'd like to be known as the trainer for our company. It's a dental office. And she says, and not only would I like to do it for our office, but we're a franchise, and I'd like to become the national trainer for our dental practice. So we sat down with one of the goodies you'll get in today's, I think I've got over 500 files in there for you. Most of you have seen this already. It's the Pathways catalog that I created years and years ago, and it's up to version 5 now. And we picked out what path we were going to have her use, and I'll show you how we did that in just a minute. But she chose presentation mastery. So we took and all her to-do list, including going out and interviewing other people to figure out what she needed, what she didn't know that she needed to know. And she created a proposal. And in that proposal for this job and title and money was also a curriculum. I mean, she went in prepared. Her boss was so impressed that not only did he give her one of 2 job offers, she had to choose between 2, but we had gone through and done enough of the work ahead of time that she was ready to go and start that job on day 1 as soon as he gave it to her. We looked at having to put together a PowerPoint presentation, how to interview customers, how to hire people, how to work with in a time frame and in a budget. And she ended up getting not 1, but 2 offers from him and 4 offers from other offices that she interviewed. And she is now traveling around the world, which is why I don't get to see my friend very much. as the national corporate trainer for their dental practice all over the United States. Many of you have probably heard about TERI Holland. She is a podcaster in more on the Vancouver side. I think she's in the middle. And she's a life coach, and she has her practice, but she wanted to be able to reach out and attract more customers. She wanted to expand her reach. So she decided to take Pathways after hearing this presentation and create a podcast. And within 48 hours, she had built a podcast and had 20 episodes in the can, so to speak, and has now got a #1 show in her category called the TERI Holland Show. And she's really easy to listen to. And she spoke at a couple of clubs that I've arranged with her, and she comes in and just shows how easy it is to do a podcast. And she went to #1 very quickly. And Stefano, he's my mentor. He's helping me get my DTM. I have one thing left to do, and that is to get a coach in Vancouver up to 8 or 12 members. And we're at 11. So we got 2 more this last weekend, which is great. He is a distinguished Toastmaster 3 times over, I think. He's also a TEDx speaker coach. I think he did his 2nd or 3rd round recently. He's also an inventor, and he has his own company. So, a normal slacker, doesn't do much. But he had been kind of letting an opportunity go by. There was a government grant that he could apply for his company to get more money to invest in the infrastructure for satellites. So he used his path and this way of taking a look at a goal and doing all your speeches in preparation for completing that goal. His goal got him an $82,500 grant from your government. As Kathy knows, I work with women mainly, but also a lot of men around the world with their goals. And some of them, just to give you ideas, one gal is working with children who have ADHD or Alzheimer's. They don't learn well with chalkboards and school books, but they do really well with inventing. So she's interested in starting up an inventor school, and then wants to put together a proposal for next June of 2024, to give to her superintendent on, kind of like KRISTY, a new program to put in place, and she wants to lead it. We also have a gal in our Changemakers group who assimilated, or not just assimilated, but escaped from Afghanistan when she was 11 years old, and is now an officer in your army there in Canada. She wants to help other women from the Middle East find their voice, claim the right to be educated, to learn a new culture, to explore new opportunities. One of our other gals is working with people with dementia, and she's running an orientation program for the families of the loved ones that are being put in the home. Good friend of mine in Minnesota is a death doula, and she's starting a whole new program called Tender Conversations. And it's conversations to have with your loved ones. And boy, is she helping me out right now with my mom. Simple, basic things from where are your papers to the final days, and how to have those conversations as part of life and not be afraid of them. And I have another gal in Minnesota. She just retired a week ago, and she lives in a high rise in Minnesota, and she wants to build a community garden. She's actually thinking of making it a butterfly garden. How does she go out and propose to her city to let her do this? How does she get a grant from the city? And they have them set aside. How does she go and get workers, donations of equipment and materials, things like that? We also know of a gal through our affiliation with Changemakers in Ukraine. I'm coaching, mentoring Anna, who escaped with her family to Portugal. But she wants to preserve the heritage and language of the Ukrainian people for the children. I have a gal down in Southern California who wants to put a mural on the side of her family's bakery. Can you imagine this beautiful old brick building that they baked bread in and it just smells so good? And she wants to put a beautiful family mosaic on the side. She wants to get not only the okay to do it because she doesn't own the building anymore, it's owned by the city, but also she wants to get donations of material. She wants to get PR coverage and marketing for it, and possibly even a commission to do more mosaics in town. We have another gal in our group who wants to do second chance business attire, where she designs the blouses from remnant fabrics and sells them, and all the proceeds go to women who need a second chance in life. And a lot of people, especially in our age bracket, they want to write down their family history before it's gone, especially if they've lived through the tremendous changes we've seen in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. We can't afford to lose that information. So to write a memoir, how do you plan to do that using Toastmasters, using your pathways? So I want you now to take your microphones and unmute yourself. And since it's just a few of us, what I'd like to do is go around and tell us an idea you have, and then I'm going to ask you some tough questions. So let me ask them first, because so you're prepared. And Michael, I'm going to pick on you first because you're on the top of my screen. What idea do you personally, not as the boss, but as for yourself, the boss of you, what would you like to accomplish? And the questions are, why, for whom, who are you doing it for, when do you want to get it done, and here's the tough one, what if I don't? So Michael, you're on the spot.
Okay. My goal in joining Toastmasters in general was to improve my impromptu speaking skills. I thought I was okay at speaking in crowds. I realized that I now got a whole lot better because of Toastmasters, but it was all about that impromptu conversations that I had difficulties in. So in Pathways, I took both motivational strategies and team collaboration paths, which deal with that in both the communication and leadership angle. And now I am working on my DTM project, having completed those two paths. I did this not just for me, but for everyone that I want to talk to. Not that I don't want to talk to people, it's that before Toastmasters, I felt I couldn't talk to people. I'd have to say when, well, this is very immediate. I want it done as soon as possible, but this has opened up more avenues that I'm just exploring right now. Maybe I can use what I've learned as an impromptu speaker and put it to some other use. And then what if I don't? Well, there's so many more pathways involved, and I'm a lifelong Toastmaster now that I know I could join another path, maybe see where that takes me.
Okay, good. Kathy, why don't you tell everybody what you've been working on?
For what? I'm working on about 10 different things, but right now I've just finished promoting a great big gala for Rotary. There's 100 years of Rotary in Fredericton, and there's 4 clubs, and they were promoting their program, this gala, with a regulation post that was striped blue and yellow and wasn't getting any attention. So I decided that I would take it under my wings. There are 10 people getting Paul Harris fellowship. There's citizens that have done outstanding things that are being recognized, these 10 people. So I made up a post on Paul Harris, who is the founder of Rotary. And then I duplicated the post, putting each person in each day. We set a post out that said their name and said that they were a recipient of the Paul Harris Award, and told all about all the things that they were doing to that garnish them to be recognized. And by doing a strategic thing of releasing these posts, we now have that we've had over 30,000 post reaches, and we have 24 new page followers and 7 or 8 new page likes. So Rotary is certainly getting its PR in the Fredericton area right now. So that's what that's my little project that I've been working on, but my goal is to promote Rotary overall, and I've been doing that in various ways. And one of the other ways is that I'm doing a maritime tour with Anastasia Persuco at the end of May and June. Back to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Kathy. Casey, do you have any ideas for things you'd like to take on? A project, maybe related with your occupation, your interests, your heritage?
Well, right now I've just been really busy with Toastmasters, and most of my speeches have been try to be motivational for getting our club being VPE. So I really haven't thought about it as much. What I want to do in a couple of years when I finally do retire. So I'm gonna have to think about that and come up with a goal of the things I want to do. But I guess right now I just catching up on my reading and things, because I've gotten so far behind that I have short-term goals of just doing things like that, but not necessarily. As I said, my speeches right now are pretty much around getting people to do things in Toastmasters.
What I like to encourage people to do is think about a goal, about something you'd like to publish, or you'd like to, like if you're interested in running for politics, or if you're concerned about the conservation, the indigenous people, we've got one gal in our group who's trying to raise money for some charity that will help in the future, not so much for her family, but for others, where they need to have evidence in a crime preserved for a longer length of period of time. So there's lots and lots of ideas, and what you can do is start to think about pathways as one big project. And I'm doing that with my current path, which is my 8th path. Granted, I did get a couple years start ahead of you guys, because that's where Pathways was first announced. And I'm using it to get a literary agent. I've also been considering using it for a couple other things, like teaching a class on self-publishing. So many people are interested in writing a book, and sure, you can get your books out on Amazon on how to do that, but a lot of people like to have workshops about it. Another thing I'm very interested in is not only telling a story through my novel, but a story through a parable. I used to love it when the preacher would tell a parable rather than read the Old Testament, because we would learn a lesson and it didn't hurt so much. And I think that there's a lot of stories out there that can do double duty, that you can tell kids and you can share with each other and use them for double duty. Even in Toastmasters, one of my back pocket speeches is a Stephen Covey story, and it has a lot of impact, and I can use it in a lot of different ways. Where I start all my planning on any project I work with is with a big, huge stack of Post-it notes. Have a whole tin full of them. And let's say I have plans to, okay, let's say get a literary agent. I just start writing down on every little sheet of Post-it note paper, just write one thing that has to be done. Or one thing that's important on each Post-it note. And then I take a deep breath and I start organizing them and I start putting together my plan. Now, what if you don't even know what to put on those Post-it notes? Maybe you have an idea, but you have no idea what your to-do list is. Now, Kathy, I was hoping was going to mention her project with St. Mary's Ferry. Am I saying that right? Tell us a
St.
little bit
Mary's
about,
Ferry Landing.
yeah, preserving the heritage of this area, very historic area. So let's say that she wanted to write one of those books that you can buy about the history of a town. She could write on a bazillion pieces of paper all the things she wants to do. And not only just a book, maybe she wants to have a walking book tour. Maybe she wants to involve chefs in the neighborhood and include some of their recipes in her book. I mean, it's really up to your imagination what you could do with your project. And then start doing your research. Where do you start? Well, you know, one of our gals used to be an EMT, yeah, at Women's Changemakers, and she is off and running a mental and physical health initiative for EMTs that were injured either physically or mentally on the job, and she's helping them stay healthy now. So there are books on that, how to market with Amazon so that she can actually have a running source of income from doing this. She can recommend, say, a book or a clock or a Fitbit or what have you, and earn, I think it's 4% of all the sales that she recommends as her income. You can also take a cheap online course. What if you're interested in how do you write a query letter for a literary agent? Well, I can go to masterclass.com and I can take a course, or better yet, I can look at the curriculum, look at their list, and there's my how-to. There's my list of everything I have to do. I just borrow their curriculum. Same thing for if you use Google Scholar. I don't know if any of you have used this, but if you put in a word in Google, you'll get everything. You'll get marketing, you'll get sales, you'll get thrown way off into never, never land. But if you use Google Scholar, which if you type in Google Scholar, you get a different search engine that only brings back to you published papers, college-worthy papers. So you know you can trust them, mostly. You can also go up to things like do a Google alert, and you can search on Google how to do that. Let's say you're interested in stuttering, which is part of the topics. I think it's interesting that I do so much public speaking and I'm writing about stuttering, but that's why, because it's a basic need for us all to communicate. I can do a Google alert on the word stuttering, and every time it appears in a reputable paper, I will get an email from Google saying, here's a new paper for you to read. I can also cheat. I love cheating. Again, ask my mom. I will get other people to do my homework if I can. I will interview other people, and I can get a project and pathways done by doing that. Prepare to interview does not mean prepare to interview for a job. Turn it around. Interview an expert. I've got a couple authors that I'm going to be interviewing because I know that when I put my interview with them on my website, they're going to automatically link to me. All of a sudden, my 2 or 3 readers is going to go up to like 1 million readers because they've got a lot of followers. So get to know who you your influencers are, people who can influence your success. Get to know them and associate with them. Know who your target audience is. My book is not for everybody. So many people are into paranormal and sci-fi and all dystopian stuff, and that I just want a good old John Grisham novel, you know. Know who I'm writing for. Know who you're doing a charity marathon for. Know who you're working with when you're trying to get some initiative passed in your city. Also know what your competition is up to. That's really important. For number one, again, you can steal from them. If they're doing this, you should be doing it too. But you're going to do it better because you're a Toastmaster. But you can go through and look at what other people are doing. And this can become your whole wall of Post-it notes. Get your ideas up there. What you're building is the Rock of Gibraltar. That's your project. But then you're going to break it right back down again. And you're going to break it down into bite-sized pieces. So that when you put it all back up again at your level 5 project, you've got your pitch, your query letter written. You've got your marathon run and got lots of good PR for it. You've got your memoir published and hand out to all your family at an upcoming wedding for somebody very popular, or a 50th wedding anniversary for somebody. What I would recommend is take your Post-it notes, and this is one of the other files I've got for you, just a plain old 3x5 index card, recipe card. Just write down what you have to do, what do you have to do before you get it done, what's the scope of the work, and how long it's going to take you. So you can kind of plan out not only what you're going to do, but then from there you can start to plan out your speeches. These are not your speeches, these are your tasks. But then later you'll match those up. And so then it's time to pick a path. Notice how I go about pathways upside down. I don't look at it from your level 1. I look at it as, what am I going to be able to accomplish if I choose this path to work on? So I've divided it up into 3 groups based on the level 5 project, which is your end project. That's your Rock of Gibraltar. I look at how much time is involved and what's involved in it. Now, the first category is the me column, and this is perfect for your brand new Toastmaster or someone who just wants to work on it on their own, doesn't want to work in a team, doesn't need a team. They can get what they want to accomplish accomplished. The number 1 path in Toastmasters worldwide is presentation mastery. It's a great path, and I highly recommend it to a lot of people. The culmination of that path is an 18 to 22 minute speech. That's everything you're working towards up to that point builds to that big speech. If you think about it, all those little rocks we saw a moment ago were part of that big rock. So when you do your level 1 and you do your icebreaker, unless you're a brand new Toastmaster, I don't want to hear about you. Sorry, Horace. I know you got lots of stories, but I don't want to hear your icebreaker. I've heard enough. Thank you very much. I want to hear what you're going to do with your path. My goal is to blah in the next 9 months. I need your help with the aspects on finances. That's not my strong suit. What I really want from each of you, and I want you to think about doing this at the end of your icebreaker. How about, let's call it your rock breaker, where you announce your plan, is to ask for honest feedback. Now, I've been in Toastmasters for 34 years, and I got my first honest evaluation 2 weeks ago. And when I heard it, I was so angry. Not at the gal who gave it to me, but for all those people who didn't. Because they didn't help me, did they? They were nice to me. You do not need to be nice to me. You're nice to me or you're helpful to me if you help me. Don't coddle me. Sure, again, it's different for your first brand new Toastmaster who's giving his very first speech. But once you've been in Toastmasters for a few years, you should be getting better and better and better. And you can only do that by presenting in your group, getting the practice, fall on your face, get up and do it again. Visionary communications. I love this one because it has at the end not only a couple speeches, but you have a business plan written at the end of visionary communications. Engaging humor is the one I will never do. And my father thanks me for that. Then I have the group called the We. This is where you're going to have to work with other people. You have to play nice with children. Effective coaching, innovative planning, and persuasive influence. Your big rock is a project. Complete a project together. Community garden would be perfect. Leadership development. We use that in our club back in California to do an elevator pitch workshop. We divided up all the work between all of us. We all got points or, our projects and pathways completed, and a very successful elevator pitch workshop, which was a lot more inviting to the audience, to the guest, than an open house for Toastmasters. Because who knows what an open house is and who knows what Toastmasters is. But if you tell them you can come to our club and learn how to do something, you'll get a good turnout. Motivational strategies is a team building event. That could be a charity marathon where you work together as a team. You have an event, your team gets stronger as a result. Cooking is also a great event to have together. And then the third category I call leadership. And that's the big ones. It takes 6 months for either a project, being, say, a club officer, strategic relationships, writing a successor plan. Please do that, especially you VPPRs. Kathy knows how much work goes into in posting all of those things up on the webpage to bring in guests and returning visitors. And then team collaboration is for being a leader in a volunteer organization. All of these level 5 projects are culminations. Don't think of them as an individual rock. Think of them as a smaller rock as part of a whole big thing. And in the project, or the files that I give you today, are the catalog and also the cards. And I'm going to show you the cards in just a minute. Both of these are PDF and you can use your search tool. So if you want to work on something that has you not do a budget, search for the word budget and cross that one off your list. Or if you want to work with a team, look for the word team or social media or what have you. Oh, by the way, I learned this the other day. You can download your PDF to your cell phone and have it read to you while you're drinking a nice cup of hot tea in the bathtub. You don't have, you can just sit back and relax and have your project read to you, just like a podcast. Now, I have 11 decks of cards. Each deck is a path, and it has every single project that's in that path. Only, there's no extra cards. You don't get to play any hidden ones up your sleeve. Doesn't mean you can't add to, but you have to play the cards you are dealt in your path. How you do it is you take your cards along with your task list and your post-it notes and all your lists, pull out all of the white cards. Those are your level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 required projects, plus the final reflect on your path. And do me a favor for that. Don't tell them what you did. Tell them what worked. Tell them what didn't work. That way you're saving other people in your club time and possibly money. Share with them what can save them time and money in the long run. Then start to pull out 2 or more of your yellow cards. Those are your level 3s. And I say, or more, because you bought that path for $20 US. That's your path. You can do every single project in that path if you want to. I'm just not going to do the funny ones. Then pull out one or more of the orange cards, one or more of the green cards, and set the rest aside. And there you have built your own custom plan. And it's fun to lay these cards out on a table and rearrange them and put them in the order you want to do them. You do not, and if you're a BPE, close your ears. You do not need to do these in order. The only reason you do them in order is for your DCP points. That's the only reason. Yes, you incrementally learn, but there's nothing stopping you from going right to level 3 and doing your research right away. You don't have to give that speech right away, but you could start to do the research on it. So use your Horus, use your icebreaker to tell us about your plan, not about you. Thank you. We'll talk later and I'll get to know you better in a different way. Do as many projects in your path as you want, in your order. And if you really do a lousy job, do it again. Do you want to go in front of the bank manager and ask for a loan for your activity or building a structure and really make a mess of yourself in front of him and then ask for a check? No, you're going to do that in front of us. Then you're going to go in and your deodorant won't die when you ask for that big check. And again, ask for honesty, ask for feedback. You've got people in your team, in your club that know something. Someone knows something about marketing. Somebody knows something about real estate. Somebody knows something about working with the social services in your city. You've got a huge brain trust of information in your club. Use them. And then schedule your plan out. And I used to have a fancy map or a fancy calendar for you to map all your cards out on, but get a calendar, put your cards on that calendar, and then meet with your VPE to schedule it out. If you're a member in only one club and you only meet once a month, it's going to take you a while to get your project done. But if you belong to more than one club or you meet more than 1 month, you'll more likely get on the schedule. Look at how many speeches you want to give. And if you want to, you can even combine some speeches. Work with your VPE. This is not to the letter of the law. This is for you to grow from. And as long as you meet the objective of the project, but maybe do it in a different way, why not? I've seen people use some of their projects in very interesting ways, which I'll get to next. You can give speeches outside of Toastmasters. And especially now with Zoom, you can have them recorded. And then you can have someone, if it's a environment where you can't have guests at the meetings, but you can give them the recording for your evaluation, do it. Or practice with somebody, just get feedback from someone. And if they're too hard for you to do in one speech, break it into 2. Nothing wrong with that either. One thing I do ask though, when you get up to give a speech, is it worth talking about? Is there a reason to speak? If you don't have a reason, then sit down. If your reason is you want to get more comfortable, that's fine. But after you've been in Toastmasters for a while, you're getting more comfort and you need to take on more complicated materials. But talk about something that's important to you at least. Now, some of the speeches that do double duty are researching and presenting, as I mentioned. Go in and start doing your research right away. Creating visual aids is a great project to work on, especially if you're going to be doing podcasts. And so is interviewing people for podcasts. Making connections through networking, great for developing your elevator pitch. So if you bump into someone you've been wanting to talk to because you want to speak at the next conference, and you bump into them at Starbucks, or I guess up there it's Tim Hortons, I've got to try that stuff. You'll have your elevator pitch ready to go. Practice it in your club. Create an event out of it. teach a workshop on it. Preparing for an interview is also interviewing others. Building a social media presence is not just your LinkedIn and your Facebook, but it's also a podcast, a website, email distribution list, learning contact management. This is an opportunity to continue learning. And that's one thing universal about Toastmaster people is we have a thirst for learning. And moderate a panel discussion. This is my new favorite path. I saw one gal over in Cork, Ireland. She had her brand new officers for the club. Think about doing this because we're coming up to that period. She had the new president, which was her, moderate a panel discussion. Who were her panelists? Her officers. Who were the audience? The club members. She let it off. She told the club what their mission is for the next year. And then she had each one of the officers address their part in making that mission come true. So it's a moments of truth that they did as a panel discussion. It was pretty ingenious. Your homework tonight is to go home, call up a friend, a grandchild, a relative, or turn to someone that lives in the same, under the same roof with you and say, you know, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? There's some power to saying it out loud. It actually enforces it in your own head. Know your answers. Go to them and say, I want to do this because for these people by this time, and if I don't, this is what is not going to get done in my lifetime. Talk to a friend about that. Talk to somebody whose opinion you value or trust. And then second, start to make your goal your priority. And I am bad at this. I'm really nice to a lot of other people except for myself. And I need to start being nicer to myself to do the things I want to do. Make your goal a priority. So Casey, in a moment, if you could, as soon as I stop sharing, put in the chat the URL to these resources, the catalog, the cards, which by the way, if your table topics person doesn't show up, pull a card out of the deck and say, what would you do with this project for your goal? And so somebody might have some pretty creative ideas for using their projects. It doesn't have to be a boring speech. It could be a lot of different things. And I had one guy down in Florida, he had an open house, and knowing that presentation mastery was the #1 path in Toastmasters, he had that deck of cards printed up in bulk, and everybody who attended that open house in person got a copy of those cards. This was pre-COVID, but they're starting to go back to in-person meetings. And just start imagining. You know, think about what you could do in 6 months or a year towards your goal, doing it your way with pathways, with purpose. It's harder
Thank you,
to see
Sandra.
all left-handed here.
And there is the link for you.
Horace, I've been picking on you. Do you have any questions for me? Helps you unmute. Can someone unmute Horace? Crystal or Casey? There you go.
Yeah, I was saying, somewhat like you, I've been around Toastmasters a long time. This is my 32nd year in Toastmasters. I joined it primarily because I lacked confidence in my own ability to interact with people. I guess I had recognized very early in life that I am an introvert, and was, I won't say frightened, but reluctant, I guess, to strike up conversations, to step into leadership roles in organizations. I think Toastmasters certainly has helped me over the years. I've been in most of the leadership positions, both at the district and at the club level. Decided at a certain point that I had gone as far up the ladder as I wanted to go. And not that the opportunity wasn't there to go right to the top, but I just said, that's not me. And I worked most of my career in managerial positions, and again, went from the bottom, probably 2/3 of the way up the ladder in the federal government in the department I worked in, and quickly concluded this is as far as I want to go, because I saw what the other people had to deal with and said, I need to have a life too. But I like the approach I heard you're describing. I've never really looked at pathways as to what's the final outcome, and once I finish this path, what am I aiming at? In fact, with pathways, I've been almost limiting myself to level 1, 2, 3 speeches, because when I look at the 4 and 5, I know I'm not particularly technically knowledgeable or inclined. And when I start seeing projects that require doing podcasts, stuff like that, it's not that they don't strike me as something I could probably do, but they just don't interest me. I don't use social media a whole lot in my normal life. And, but I'm, to be perfectly honest, at the moment, struggling with a decision about whether I really want to finish and work towards a DTM in pathways. I'm already a DTM. I said, having one more isn't really going to change my life. I have projects outside of Toastmasters that I'm, as you were talking, I was trying to think to myself about how I can use what I learn in pathways to work on those projects. I'm the chair of the board of my church, which is facing significant declines in membership. And if we can't turn that around, probably the church is not going to survive. And I'm also on the board of a local museum that's in much the same plight. We went from having 150 members of a historical society 20 years ago to now having about a dozen. And some of that's because all the old people died off that were interested in the history of the community. And the younger people don't seem to have any interest in knowing about the history of their community or of doing anything to keep it alive. And that's, I think the same could be said of the church. Like we have in the church I go to, I would say the average age is 75. The other church that's in our pastoral charge is not much different. None of the, you know, and I've raised this question from the pulpit, like, where are your children and where are your grandchildren? Because none of them are coming to church.
Yeah, and you know, you don't have to look at one path equals one goal. I mean, you can have a thread, a topic, a personal mission to explore various things in your speech. And what I like about having a project, though, is once you've got an idea, like you're going to run a charity marathon, your mind fills up with ideas for speeches. And you won't be going, well, what am I going to talk about today? You know, you're going to have something that takes over your life in a way, or your thoughts, and you can use it for material for speech, and find a way to reach people in, you know, I don't listen to podcasts, but I realize that they are what a lot of people listen to. If I wanted to my goal was something that required me to podcast, I would do it. If it doesn't, I'm not going to.
Mhm.
There are other electives that you can choose to do instead. And I like a few of them. The Q&A, I like that one. The manage a panel discussion is another one. I do not like the manage a difficult audience because it's such a fake situation. But you can use those different speeches as a way to get your message across, just in bite-sized pieces.
Yeah,
It's-
I mean, I do.
Don't mean to interrupt, Sandra, but that manage a difficult audience is kind of really relevant for us in change makers if we're working with women who are going to go and run for political office. That is an amazing exercise for them to go through, because they have to handle that out in public all the time. Women are often targeted when they're speaking by hecklers of one sort or another. So that project it seems very artificial for in some situations, but for us who are working with women in politics or women who are running, that is a key. I love that project. Sorry,
Yeah.
Horace, didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, actually,
Well, we
it's
are-
interesting you mentioned that, because one of the people who was running in the Summerside area is a former member of one of my Toastmasters clubs. And, you know, she unfortunately didn't win, but I think acquitted herself as well as one might expect, given the fact that there was a conservative sweep here in the provincial election.
Well, I've got all the materials on that drive. I know we're at the top of the hour, but we see each other on the block, so to speak. And you can also contact me. My email is on a lot of the material in that Google Drive. And like I said, Casey or Crystal, feel free to make all that info available on your district website as well.
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you for coming and doing a great presentation. It was actually very illuminating for a lot of reasons. And to see something that put together that well.
I agree. As I was doing area visits, and everyone kept on telling me they needed a why for why to do these Toastmaster projects. And if they follow this presentation of what you've presented us, they can get that why if they think about it.
Yeah, it was
Makes it fun.
just sorry that we didn't have more people, but hopefully they'll get the recording and get and follow it.
Well,
Very
thank
good.
you